everyone, it's Kali Star with Earth Matters and Soup Sorceress. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to address something that I heard recently, which was somebody was feeling like maybe they just weren't adventurous enough to try out different vegetables that you get in your CSA. And I want to address it because sometimes we feel these high expectations of ourselves, especially when we meet something for the very first time and we're not used to it and we're not sure what to do with it, and it takes more mental energy and it's just something new. Over time, you get so used to it and it's just something that is a part of your life. And we want all these different vegetables to be normal and easy for people and just really acclimate to them. So I'm going to mention a few vegetables so that you can treat that vegetable a lot like the vegetable that you are used to, and it can be something that's very easy for you. Also, I'm available to answer those questions, and I would love to hear from you in the comments below if there's a vegetable that you want to have more clarity on and figure out what to do with. I love answering those questions. Part of the reason why some of the vegetables feel a little different when maybe before supermarkets these things weren't different, there was more of it growing. There was more of these heirloom varieties out there, whereas now we do see a lot of the same things at the supermarket. And part of the reason that is because they have to keep it on the shelf for a little while, so they're choosing vegetables that will stay on the shelf and look a certain way so that it's easy for the customers to buy them. And so that has kind of created this idea of what they should look like and what is more valuable, but really it's not what we would have grown up in our garden, or from our farm next door when we're riding our horse to the farm. It's just it's very it was much more natural. Maybe now some of these heirloom varieties don't feel as natural, but I'm going to share with you some of them so that it does feel that way. For example, you'll see at the supermarket shelf, often you'll see green zucchini, and what you don't see is Romanesco squash, which is a type of zucchini that it has ridges, it has a more nutty flavor. It's literally my favorite summer squash. I also love sunburst squash. So an example of something that you don't really see at a supermarket is Romanesco squash. That's a summer squash. It's not in season right now, but when we get it, I'm so excited because it has this amazing texture. It's a more nutty flavor than a zucchini. It looks cooler. I just love it. And some farmers don't grow it because it doesn't yield half as much as zucchini does. And it also doesn't last as long on the shelf. And that's why you mostly see green zucchini on the shelf. But Romanesco squash, in my opinion, is so much more delicious. So we love to share these kinds of varieties with you whenever we can. Spigarello have these curly leaves. It's like curly hair, and it's similar to the flavor and texture of collard greens. So you can use Spigarello the same way that you would use collard greens. And at first it might seem intimidating because you might think that because of the different shape you can't do the same thing, but you totally can. Most people have tried kale chips before. I make Spigarello chips and they are my favorite. They are so delicious. So I highly recommend trying that next time we get Spigarello if you like kale chips. The next two examples I'm going to give you are coming in our bundle this weekend, and that's going to be Bloomsdale spinach and Hanona turnip. Bloomsdale spinach, you're just going to cook just like spinach. It's pretty much the same thing. Bloomsdale spinach is an heirloom variety that is more curly. It's so beautiful. And you can treat it the same way as you would spinach. And then Hanona turnips, you can treat those the same way you would treat the little round turnips. And the flavor might be slightly different. And the only other real difference is that it's a different shape, so you're going to cut it differently. You're going to cut it more like a carrot because that's the shape that it is. It's a gorgeous turnip. It's white with a little purple on it. I just absolutely love this turnip. So it is a little less intimidating when you look at it and you think about the little round turnips just shaped differently. Next example are hard squashes. We also call them winter squashes, and Most people have tried butternut squash, but we also have the fun of getting carnival squash, kabocha squash, red curry squash, delicata squash. These can all pretty much be cooked the same way, and they're all delicious. They all have a little bit of a different flavor, but pretty much you can do the same thing with all of them. You might find that there's a little difference in texture in some of them, and so one of them you might want to puree instead of cutting into chunks, and that's fine too. But pretty much whatever you've done with butternut squash, you can do with those squashes. However, spaghetti squash is not one of those. That is a squash all on its own. So that you actually treat like spaghetti. But you can simmer that in a pot or bake that in the oven just like you can butternut squash, but you treat it like spaghetti. My next example is there are all these different types of kale. And so sometimes people feel a little intimidated when they see red Russian kale. No, it is such a good kale. And it has a little bit of a milder flavor, and it's also more of a delicate leaf. And I'm just so happy when we can get it because not many farmers grow it, and there's limited supply when they do. So it's very exciting when we can have it. And just treat it the same way you would kale, and you might like it even better like I do. So those are just a few of the examples. If you have any questions about any of these seasonal local vegetables, please feel free to reach out to me. You can also comment here in the video and ask me any question about the vegetables and maybe what's the best way to cook one of these. What is my favorite way that I can share with you that might help make your life easier. So my last words are to say, if you're not feeling so adventurous, that's totally okay. We want you to be acclimated to this. That's something normal. It's something simple. Sometimes I just go into the refrigerator and I grab a collard green leaf out of it and I start chewing it like a rabbit, because ultimately I just want that green in my body, and I want greens every day because it makes me feel so good. So to me, grabbing a collard green leaf, it's like drinking really good high quality water. It makes me feel amazing. And if I, in one of those moments where I don't have time to work on a recipe, that's totally okay. There's certain points through the week where I can do that and I can put more attention to those things. And then there's some times where I just steam the cauliflower, pour a little bit of olive oil on it, and that's it. So thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for supporting our local organic small farms and being a part of this adventure with us in reviving these vegetables that we haven't seen so often and making that normal and natural and easy. I'm wishing everyone the most magical day. I hope you're all staying healthy, and I'll see you soon. Take care.